This lecture is supposed to be about how to study a city and its culture, the methods and methodology of doing a study on Blue House, on West Kowloon, on Wan Chai, and so on. Normally, this course or a lecture of this nature would go on for 8, 9, 10 lectures. For example, in the second semester, I have another course called Searching Media and Culture, which lasts for an entire term, talking about ethnography and so on. So in the next 40 minutes, I'm going to summarize what I shall do next semester. Hope to make some sense out of it. But as I designed the lecture, it may be doable, in the sense that we have to distinguish between two senses of the term methods and methodology. Very often when some of you approach me and say, well, in week 6 we are going to go out to do a study of Blue House. We are going to study West Kowloon Cultural District and so on. Some of you ask me, how are we going to do this? Okay, let's look what's the last. Some of you approached me lately and asked me how best to study culture, how best to go to Blue House if, say, in 3 weeks' time, I'm going to end up in Wan Chai. What shall I do? How am I to do observation? How am I to do interview? How am I to do oral history, for example? To answer those questions may take an entire term. And actually, they are not the most important questions, as far as I can see. What is more important is why you are going to Wan Chai, why you want to start a research on West Kowloon, and what are you going to do if you take up something on West Kowloon and then Wan Chai and how people live there. What are you going to work on the findings, and what do you want to achieve with such findings in hand? So maybe the first thing we need to distinguish in this lecture is the two terms, related terms. One is method, the how of social research. How do you do interview? How do you talk to another person so that he or she can give you genuine information and feelings? A question of how, of methods. I tend to think the more important question is the question of what and why. Why are you going to study something? And what are you going to make use of that something when you take up certain information? That I would call the methodology of studying something. So the first distinction is method and methodology. The important thing is methodology all the time. The what and why come before the how question. And when one asks the why and what question, we are talking about a total intellectual effort. How you're going to approach the world, what you bring to the field when you try to study something. So the big word I use here is the term vision. When we go out to do our fieldwork in the later part of the course, the first thing we need to clarify for ourselves is the vision we bring to our task. The word seems big because the whole thing is really, really big. I teach sociology. I come from the social sciences tradition. And when they talk about vision, when they talk about why and what, they often go back 2 centuries before. If you want to do sociology, if you want to do social studies, you must have certain mission in mind, the why question. You must also have some sense of what the world is doing to you, and you want to do something back to the world, to change the world, to do something to the world. So if you ask me what is the vision, that might govern your fieldwork. One ready-made answer would be, we learn from the textbook of social sciences, and they give you one set of vision. But as I shall go on to elaborate, that vision may not be very useful for our course, especially after we have listened to all the discussions on cultural policy in the colonial context of Hong Kong. How, as a population, Hong Kong people are now trying to find a voice to rediscover their identity and cultural background. So first of all, this is the tradition that is most available. But I would say it would not be the tradition that we shall be using for the rest of our fieldwork. But they would be the starting point. Whenever people ask, why do you want to do social research? The simple answer would be, you want to do something good to the world. And how do you do something good to the world? You learn from the best practices. So for the past 2 centuries, sociologists like us ask the same question. Why do we want to understand the world? It is because we want to do something good like the natural scientists did at that time. So 2 centuries before, when the world changed to become a modern world, there were new things discovered, and there were new problems being identified, and new solutions offered to those problems. Most of the people studying the world learn or imitate from the natural scientists. The model goes like this. Very often we look up to people practicing medicine, practicing engineering, because they deliver the goods. Why do we want to go out to study West Kowloon Cultural District? It is because we want to do something good to Hong Kong. How can we learn the best practice? The best practice is to learn from those who are practicing the best thing on earth. And they must be the medical practitioners who cure diseases, for example. The engineers who build bridges, which did not fall down. People who discover disease and then identify the causes of disease and then invent medication and then they save life. That would be the model we should imitate and strive to develop. So from the beginning, social scientists and sociologists very often look at themselves as if they are medical practitioners. We want to identify problems, identify causes of the problems, and then invent certain solutions in order to save lives and culture of this world. Very often they model themselves on the medical practitioners' vision of social research. We call positivism, 實證主義. We have to get over this landmark first before we can talk about what we shall do. Because what comes after this initial introduction is that we are going to do anti-positivism. We are going to overturn the 2 centuries of social science thinking. I learned positivism when I first started doing sociology. My teachers taught me this is the best way to approach the world. We try to identify problems, prescribe solutions by following science. So this is typically what my teacher taught me 20 years ago. Or was it 40 years ago? It was more like 30 years ago. What they gave me was a kind of social engineering model. A microphone broke down. You call the repair person to give you a new battery, and the microphone goes back into order. This is what we call engineering, a problem, a solution, and then you solve it. Sociologists model themselves on this sort of thinking and try to do social engineering. Young people like you do not go to Hong Kong Film Archive, even though the Film Archive has been established for a lot of years. You simply miss it, you simply do not appreciate that culture exists in Hong Kong. So this is a big problem. We want to identify the cause of this problem and then to try to redress it. This is what we call a kind of social engineering. Just like a microphone broke down, we solve it. Culture breaks down, we solve it. The key is, first of all, to identify what is wrong with this culture. People don't go to museums. People don't visit the film archive. People do not like to watch classic movies, whatever. So first of all, positivism starts with certain identifiable problem and try to do as engineering does. We try to identify solutions and then redress those issues. How are we going to do engineering? Obviously, like what engineers do. What they do is to do it in the scientific way, which means the following.